Get off your Vtube Studio default settings, please. No matter how good your rig is, no matter how much effort your artist puts in, if you don't adjust the model to fit you, it's never going to look good. My goal of this video is to get y'all off these default settings and hopefully provide a resource for both artists and clients to refer to. This is mainly going to be about how I set up my parameters, and your process may be vastly different, but I find this the most consistent and easy to do across different models. The first half of this video has advice that works for every rig, the straightforward stuff. The second half goes into details on how to make your model fit your personality more, the kind of decisions you can make. We'll end this video by setting up a model together. If you want to just know the basics, you could stop watching after about 5 minutes, but if you really want to optimize your model and bring out its full potential, keep watching until the end. Remember though, not every model is the same, nor should the parameters be set up the same either. The important thing is, experiment and play around with it and see what works for you. First, the basics. Where to put your camera? Above all else, keep it consistent. There's no use in us going into these numbers and setting it up if it's gonna move every time. And if you have a webcam, give it as much light as you can. I know you're a VTuber, but buy a ring light. If your room isn't bright enough, you wanna give your webcam as much light as you can. If you're an iPhone user, if you're an iPhone 10 and above, don't worry, you can stream in a dark room all you want. As long as you have the Face ID thing and you're using that for your Vtube Studio, you're good. But whether it's a phone or a webcam, keep it as close to your face as you can and keep it slightly lower than eye level is what I find works best. And don't forget to recalibrate your camera. So the first setting we want to change is the movement config. You might notice some VTuber models, they might like lean back and they'll shrink a lot, or if they move in, they'll grow a lot bigger. That's the Z-axis working here. I usually like to keep it as 0 so that my model doesn't change size that much, as well as keeping the X and Y parameters decently lower, because I move left and right a lot. If I move the X parameter movement config up, you'll notice whenever I move, I go left and right a lot on my model as well. This can really mess up the way I set up my overlays, especially because I keep my model position as hotkeys for whether I'm in a corner, whether I'm showing torso up for just chatting and stuff like that. So the movement config, I like to keep Z as 0 and X and Y to 2s and 3s. That's a personal preference though. Alright, the next thing we're going to change is what inspired me to make this video in the first place. And it's going to be these parameters. So if we look here, we want to make sure our input values match what we're doing with our face. If we look here, this number is what your camera is setting to Vtube Studio. And this pair of number is going to be your upper bound and your lower bound for your inputs. And that's going to be the maximum value of the motion of your face that it's tracking. So here's what I mean. In each node, there should be a description of what motion it's tracking. For example, this one is face left right rotation. So we're gonna turn our face left as much as we normally would when streaming, while keeping an eye on this value. And it's about -15. And we'll do it for the other maximum movement, for in this case to the right. And it's about 20. It's about 20. So that gives us what we want to put in for the upper and lower bounds. If you notice, the default values are 30 and -30. If I bring it back to default, you'll notice for the same amount of face movement, which is what this number is, my model is moving less. In this way, we can make sure it perfectly captures the way we move. And this works for every parameter. Face up, down, face lean, mouth smile, mouth open, body rotation, everything. If you go through all your parameters and just move based on what it's doing for you, your model is going to instantly look a lot better. There is no need to exaggerate your movements. Just move as you normally would when you're streaming. As an aside, if you don't know what each of the parameters does, you could always go to expression editor and create a new expression. You could go in here and you could look at all your parameters, and you could just wiggle it and see which output it's changing. Like this one is parameter eyeball Y. It's making me look up and down. Or I could do something like, for example, if I didn't know what this was, it would be parameter angle Y. Oh, that's my face looking up and down. And you'll notice that it's completely separate from the rest of my face. I'm forcing my Vtube Studio to take an input like this. So you can go in and see for yourself what each of these outputs do. Now, if you got here, you've already put in more effort than a lot of VTubers out there. At this point, your model should fit the way you move very well. You could stop here and be happy, or we can get a little nerdy and fine-tune the model based on your personality. For example, the way we set this up, we have it at the maximal way it moves. For example, my face turns to the left to 20 and to the right to -15. That's all it is. But let's say I want to make it more expressive. I want it to move more based my model to move more based on less movement from myself. Well, I could change this to like 10 and -5. And you'll notice my model will, shake its head a lot quicker, be a lot more responsive. However, you do want to be careful, because if you reach past the max, sometimes your models will look like, if I turn smoothing all the way down, it kind of looks like it's slammed into a wall, and that doesn't look really good. This is one of those things where you just have to play with and see what works for you. Well, you have to make sure it fits your personality. Maybe you want your model to move a little less. Maybe you want your model to move a little more. Another fun thing you could do is you could flip the upper and lower bounds. For example, I could do -15 and 20. This way, when I turn left, my model turns right, and you can see that my body angle tracking still think I'm turning the same way. So I like using this if, for example, if my chat is on my left monitor, but it looks to the right on my actual stream overlay, and I want to make sure that I'm looking at it, makes it look like I'm looking at chat on the overlay while I'm actually looking at chat IRL. I could just adjust and flip these parameters. Another thing that you could do with switching parameters, you might have seen this in some models. You can make your model do a little wiggle like this. So when I move Z one way for my head, my body moves a different way. It's kind of cute in its own way, and it's something worth experimenting with. See if you like it. Another thing you could do with these parameters is to limit the range. For example, if I don't want to look left at all, I could call this 0 and put this as 0 here and limit the range. So now I can't look left at all. Actually, it looks a little awkward. Another example when you want to do that is on the rare cases where sometimes you don't like the way your rig looks at extreme angles. Sometimes when you look to the left too much, the face deforms in a way that you might not like. Then you could probably change the outputs to something like this, so it hits, let's say, 25 instead of 30 for the output. In general, however, you want to make sure that the values you put in for the upper and lower bounds for the output matches the max and min here. In this way, you're using the full range of expression your model has. The next thing I want to do is to quickly set up this freebie model from Vtube Studio. You could see now that it's a little stiff and it doesn't really quite match what I'm doing. So first, well, let's move the movement config so that it sort of stays roughly still while we mess around with it. And now we'll do the same for the face left-right rotation. You can see here, I'm only turning left to the -15 and +20 here. So we'll do 20 and -15. Also, you do want to make sure that your hotkey toggles are turned off. So we'll do that real quick. These are linked to the numpad. So let's do that. So the left and right already fits a little better. And you could do the face up down rotation as well. You could see that when I look up and down, the model doesn't really react, right? But if I put it as 10 and -7, you could see that the model actually moves based on how I move. And face lean as well. Yeah, I've got a stiff neck, so I can only do, let's say 17 and -17. Ooh, right here. And also, yeah, and now it moves. So this is where your body angle, I find if you have your body angle and your face angles match up, it makes for a much more cohesive looking model. So for example, my face angle Z, 17 and -17 would be here as well. And my face up down, my face angle Y, 10 -7 would just go here, 10 -7. And of course my face left right rotation, my face angle X, that's 20 -15. So I'll just go here and go 20 -15. And you could already tell, look at that. We already have a much more responsive model. Now, of course, you could go the same for the mouth open, mouth smile, and all this stuff, and it'd be the same way. Just like that. Very, very easy. But that's about it from me. At the end of the day, you need time to tweak and adjust your model. One thing I like to do when I get a new VTuber model is to have it on while I work. Make sure the parameters look good at different angles, see if there's any bugs. And of course, you want to check your VODs. You want to notice the difference between reading chat, reading in-game text, or just talking normally. Let me know what worked for you and what didn't. If you have any questions, feel free to put it in the comments below. If you disagree, you're very welcome to. This is just how I set up my models and how I find works for the greatest variety of rigging styles. And of course, if you like my content, don't forget to like and subscribe. And thank you all so much for watching. Hopefully, this gets you off your default settings.